Prime Minister Carney, elected officials, fellow clergy, and distinguished guests, Bruchim Habaim. My name is Cantor David Rosen, and it is my honor and privilege to welcome everyone here to Holy Blossom Temple and to this beautiful space we call our Mishkan. May this sacred space, which we use for worship, study, and life cycle moments, be a source of both comfort and hope in a time where we so greatly need to come together. As we prepare to sing O Canada, we acknowledge that our community is situated on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. This land is now home to many diverse nations, Inuit and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. May our gratitude for this country include a commitment to honoring its full history and to building a future of dignity, respect, and belonging for all. Please rise and join me in the singing of O Canada. I now ask that you turn your attention to the screens for greetings and a message from our senior rabbi, Yael Spolansky.
Shalom, everyone. Oh, how I wish I could be with you in person to hear the Prime Minister's important address firsthand. Only care for my own father here in Massachusetts could keep me from this historic occasion. Welcome to Holy Blossom Temple, Toronto's first synagogue, founded in 1856, even before Canada was born. Welcome rabbis and community leaders, welcome congregants and guests, welcome members of parliament and elected officials, and a special welcome to Holy Blossom Temple's own MP, Leslie Church, and to Minister Evan Solomon, whose family runs 4 generations deep here at Holy Blossom. Welcome, Prime Minister Carney. We are eager to hear your address to the nation. We are listening carefully for your clear commitment to confront anti-Semitism wherever it festers. History teaches us that the health of a country, the health of any society, is inextricably linked to its treatment of Jews. I don't know how to explain this when we are such a small minority, but 3,500 years testify that it is true. Last week, I visited a church where the pastor explained it simply by pointing to God's promise to Abraham, "I will bless those who bless you and curse the one who curses you. V'nivrechu v'cha kol mishpachot ha'adama. All the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you." The very room in which you are gathered was once, during World War II, filled wall to wall with sewing machines, so congregant volunteers could make woolen sweaters and socks for the soldiers overseas. More than 1 million Canadians served in the Canadian Armed Forces during World War II. They served Canada and the world because they understood what happens when hatred goes unchecked. They served and sacrificed because they knew what was right and they stood up for what was right. Among them was Leonard Levy, of blessed memory. Many remember Leonard as Holy Blossom's head usher for Shabbat and holy days. He greeted everyone with a smile and a firm handshake. He was small in stature, which is why, Leonard explained, he could be a tail gunner with the Royal Canadian Air Force. Tail gunners took the most dangerous positions, stuffed into the tail of the plane where there wasn't even room for a parachute. When Leonard came home in one piece, it was a Friday, and his mother said, "We're going to Holy Blossom." Leonard said, "Let me just change into my Shabbos clothes." "No," she insisted. "You will wear your uniform. I want everyone to see that a soldier has come home." Why do I share these memories of dear Leonard Levy with you today? Because Leonard, like so many of his generation, loved his country and dedicated himself to it wholeheartedly. And he loved his Judaism and dedicated himself to it wholeheartedly. Later in life, Leonard went from school to school, telling his story proudly as a Jewish Canadian veteran. For him, being a Jewish Canadian was a singular devotion, one identity that fit together seamlessly. But today, many fear that in order to be safe, we must relinquish one identity or the other. Many Jewish Canadians feel we are presented with an impossible choice. Either stay in the public domain and hide your Jewish identity at school or on campus, on social media or in the workplace, or retreat from public spaces, give up on the public school system, lose faith in non-Jewish neighbors, or flee Canada altogether in search of a place where we and our children can be safe, understood, and accepted as Jews and as lovers of Israel. Mr. Prime Minister, you know that anti-Semitism is not a Jewish problem. Just as people of color cannot fix racism, just as women cannot correct misogyny, Jewish citizens cannot rid the country of anti-Semitism. Only government can govern. We are grateful for law enforcement and intelligence agencies who work day and night to keep us safe. We wish we did not need their protection, but we do, and so we thank them. We are grateful for government security grants, although they only cover a fraction of the true cost of protecting ourselves from those who wish us harm. These costs are literally the price all Canadians must now pay for allowing anti-Semitism to become normalized. Prime Minister Carney, we do not want to live in fortresses. No other Canadian community needs such protection to pray in their houses of worship. It should not take an act of courage to bring a child to school or summer camp. In 5 swift years, Canada has gone from being one of the world's most desirable places to raise a Jewish family to one of the world's most dangerous. At some point, we have to wonder if our freedom of religion, as enshrined in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, is being upheld. When synagogues are shut up, when Jewish businesses are targeted, when Jewish neighborhoods are terrorized, it does not feel like freedom. The matter is urgent. Canada's own Integrated Threat Assessment Center says so. God help us. When hate is tolerated, it grows. When hateful words go unchecked, they lead to hateful acts. When laws are not enforced, permission is granted and lawlessness escalates. And when Canadian elected leaders publicly condemn Israel, the world's only Jewish state, Jewish Canadians pay the price. Canadian stability is being tested now. Canadian values are on trial now. At this watershed moment in its history, Canada must make good on its promise of peace, order, and good government. There is a blessing to be recited on the rare and precious occasion when one finds herself in the presence of a prime minister. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shenatan michvodo levasar vadam. Praised are you, eternal our God, ruler of the universe, who has given a measure of your glory to flesh and blood. Mr. Prime Minister, when we spoke recently, you asked that I say a prayer for you. May God, who is the knower of all, help you to know and understand, to listen and lead with a measure of God's divine insight. May God, who is the judge of all, help you to discern what is good and right and just. May God, who balances power with compassion, help you to lead with both strength and compassion for the sake of all the citizens under your care. And I will conclude with our innermost prayer, a prayer for peace. Oseh shalom b'romav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu va'al kol Yisrael, va'al kol yoshvei tevel. May God, who causes peace to reign in the highest of heavens, cause a measure of that peace to rain down on you, on us, on Canada, on Israel, and all the world. And together we say, Amen. Shalom, everyone. Oh, how I wish I could be with you in person.
I'm happy to report that Rabbi Splansky's father's surgery was a success this morning, and our hearts and prayers remain with the Splansky family at this time. It is now my distinguished honor to introduce our local member of Parliament, Leslie Church, to offer words of welcome.
Thank you, Cantor Rosen. It's an honor to be with you and the exceptional team led by Rabbi Splansky here at Holy Blossom. Holy Blossom has been at the heart of Toronto St. Paul's and Canada's Jewish community for generations. It is the oldest synagogue in Toronto and just celebrated 170 years strong. We were here a few weeks ago celebrating that milestone. It was an evening of music, history, and celebration. I brought my youngest daughter, who is 7, with me. Our own faith community is just a few blocks away. We're used to going to church, but it was her first time at a synagogue. As we arrived that evening, she looked at me with worry and asked why all the police were here. We've never had to pass a police officer to go to our church or to her school, let alone several. But that's the daily reality of our Jewish community, where the iconic Beth Tzedek, only a block away from where we are today, has to erect a fence to harden the security of its synagogue and day school, a place of worship, a place of learning and peace, about to be walled off from the community it serves. It tears your heart. This can't be our normal. No community in Canada should have parents afraid to drop off their children at school or feel the need to shield their identity, worrying about a mezuzah on their door or whether it's safe to wear a kippah or a Star of David. Particularly in these past nearly 3 years since October 7th, anti-Semitism has come out of the shadows and onto our streets. It's why now we must name it, define it, confront it, and defeat it. And as Rabbi Splansky said, this is not a Jewish issue. It is a Canadian one. All of us must stand together to uphold the values we share as Canadians, to respect one another, to live free from fear and intimidation, to be able to live proudly who we are. It's been a true joy being welcomed into the Holy Blossom community. The art and beauty, the music, the passion for ideas and learning, the selflessness of caring for the most vulnerable in our midst. I can't help in this moment but to think of your past president and a good friend of many here today who left us too soon, Eric Rower. I want to channel his love for Holy Blossom, for this community, and for Canada to everyone listening today. He would have been as delighted as I am to have the Prime Minister here to speak to these values, to the work we're doing, to turn them from words into action. A Prime Minister who has put his own thumb on the scale when it matters most to drive legislation forward combating hate or to invest in the security networks and the infrastructure our community needs. And he is not alone. We have a great team of allies and supporters, some of whom are here today to join us. I want to recognize my colleagues, the Minister of Public Safety, the Honourable Gary Ananda Sangari, Anthony Housefather, Member of Parliament for Mount Royal, Vince Gasparo from Eglinton Lawrence, Rachel Bendayan from Outremont, Ben Carr from Winnipeg South Centre, Maggie Chi from Don Valley North, and Daniel Martin from University Rosedale. And I'd like to recognize 2 of my predecessors here in the community who are here with us as well, past MP for Toronto St. Paul's Barry Campbell and the Honourable Senator Jerry Grafstein. Thank you. And in that spirit, I want to warmly welcome an invaluable voice and presence in our Jewish caucus, one of Holy Blossom Temple's own members and my good friend, the Honourable Minister Evan Solomon.
Merci, Leslie. Leslie's a true leader in the community and a powerful voice in our caucus and lifting up the voice of our community. So good evening, everyone. Bonjour, chers amis. Beaucoup des amis ici. À toutes et à tous. Shalom, everybody. Good friends, Senator. Prime Minister Carney, welcome. It's a great honor for us to have you here, and Public Safety Minister Gary Ananda Sangari, who has been Where is Gary? Yes, has shown such leadership here. Gary, thank you. Colleagues, members of the Jewish community, leaders of the Jewish community, chiefs of police, deputy commissioner of the, senior deputy commissioner of the RCMP, all of you. It's a pleasure to be here. It is meaningful to be here at Holy Blossom. As the rabbi said, for me, this is not just a place of worship. This is home. Ici, c'est mon chez moi, ma communauté. This is the synagogue where I was married. My brother is here, was married. My sister is here. Her husband's married. I think my mother was married here. If you weren't married here, you weren't married. Many generations of my family, but more importantly, many generations of thousands of families have found community here, have found meaning here, have found belonging here. Now under the remarkable leadership of Yael Splansky, but a long line of great rabbis and great cantors. Thank you, Cantor. That rendition of O Canada was beautiful. Great cantors. Like so many Jewish synagogues and shuls, Holy Blossom has long been a key part of the fabric of Jewish life, not only here in Toronto, but here in Canada and around the world. Being a Jewish Canadian story of faith, of service, of community, of joy, of leadership, of genuine debate, of resilience, and of contribution. Depuis des générations, cette synagogue incarne des valeurs profondément canadiennes, que des personnes de toutes foi puissent venir ici, créer une communauté, pratiquer leur religion, élever leurs enfants et se sentir chez eux dans une des plus grandes villes du monde. C'est ça, la promesse du Canada. That is the promise of this great country. But as Leslie said, as the rabbi said, we have to be honest about this urgent and dangerous moment. Across the country, Jewish Canadians are facing a level of anti-Semitism that is unacceptable, it is frightening, and it's dangerous. Synagogues need security. Parents worry about their children's safety on campuses, at Jewish summer camps, at day schools, walking into community spaces like this one. Imagine going into your place of worship, a church, a mosque, with your family and your loved ones, and needing police to feel safe just to worship. That is not normal in Canada, should never be normal in Canada, but for Jewish Canadians right now it is, and the fear is real. Synagogues across the country are getting shot at. Synagogue where I was bar mitzvah, Temple Emmanuel, not far in another part of Toronto where many of our members visited, was shot with 20 bullets. It's sobering to see 20 bullet holes in the glass of the synagogue where your family walked through. Thank God no one was hurt. That is the reality for Jewish Canadians, and all Canadians must confront this. In the face of this hate, our government has taken critical steps, strengthening laws, supporting community service, and standing with communities facing hate. But we also know that no Jewish Canadian should ever have to wonder whether the government sees this clearly. We do. We see it. We acknowledge it. We are acting on it. That is why our caucus colleagues are here. That is why Gary Anandasangri, our public safety minister, has always responded so swiftly and so vigilantly to every threat and incident with law enforcement who are here. Chief as well, thank you so much for that work. And I want to say something personally about the Prime Minister. Nobody takes this more seriously than our Prime Minister. Le Premier ministre a tenu des réunions régulières avec le leader de la communauté juive, ses collègues, la famille et les personnes directement touchées par cet attentat. He listens. The Prime Minister listens. The Prime Minister feels this. He understands the fear. We speak about it. He has been seized with the responsibility to act, and he has, expeditiously. This is not only a policy issue for him. This is the heart of who he is and why he entered public service, to make sure every Canadian feels at home in Canada. Canada strong means Canada safe. It is a question of who we are as a country. So today, Prime Minister, your presence here is welcome. It matters to this congregation. It matters to the Jewish community across the country. And it matters to all Canadians who stand together to make sure that no one should ever feel unsafe when they practice their religion in this country. I want to thank you for your constant attention, your personal commitment, and your determination to confront anti-Semitism and hate in all its forms. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honourable Mark Carney.
Thank you. Thank you, Evan, dear friend. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Cantor Rosen. Rabbi Splansky, I'm pleased to hear the news of your father. Thank you in absentia, although you're very much present with that video greeting. Thank you all for welcoming me to the heart of Holy Blossom, the heart of your community. Now, I'm going to speak, obviously, to this community, but I want to speak to the nation. Rabbi Splansky, much of what she said resonates directly with what I will say. She said it better. She'll be quicker. So sit comfortably. But let me draw on some of those traditions. 3,000 years, Jewish tradition has taught us that a society should not be judged by its wealth or its power, but how it treats its most vulnerable. The Hebrew prophets returned repeatedly to this lesson. Isaiah called on rulers to learn to do good, devote yourselves to justice, aid the wrong, uphold the rights of the orphan, defend the cause of the widow. Amos warned against societies that prosper while neglecting the weak. The message of the prophets to us was that a just society is sustained not merely by law, but also and most fundamentally by the obligations that we owe to each other. Centuries later, in a different way, Aristotle described this as civic friendship. By friendship, he did not mean intimacy, affection, or fellow feeling. He meant something more demanding and durable. The mutual recognition between citizens that each is pursuing a good life under the same political roof, and the conditions of your flourishing are the same, must be the same as mine. And this is the covenant that makes Canada possible. This is the covenant that is being tested today by the scourge of anti-Semitism. And I want to speak today about that terrible reality, a reality this community has been facing, Jewish community across this country has been facing. I want to speak to that reality and how we as Canadians can restore the full promise of Canadian citizenship to all. Because Canada was not founded on a single creed, race, language, or faith. Instead, we've held our differences in common, beginning after a long period of struggle and oppression with the French and English accommodation. This deepened with Confederation, and it's been carried through successive generations of immigration from every continent and of every faith and none. It continues to be traveled in the long journey of reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, the original stewards of this land. Le respect, en fait, la célébration des différences est inscrit dans la Charte des droits et libertés, notamment dans l'article 27, qui indique que toute interprétation de la Charte concordée avec l'objectif de promouvoir le maintien et la valorisation du patrimoine multiculturel des Canadiens. Et cet engagement repose sur un concept que l'un des grands philosophes canadiens, Charles Taylor, appelait la reconnaissance. Selon lui, la reconnaissance est plus simple que la tolérance. Il s'agit plutôt de reconnaître activement que chaque citoyen est constitué en partie de l'identité qu'il porte en lui par sa foi, la langue, ses traditions, son histoire, et que sa dignité est préservée que si l'on tient compte de ces aspects de son identité. Each of our identity includes our faith, our history, our traditions, our culture, as Rabbi Splansky alluded. We have to hold those at the core, because to be recognized, to be truly recognized, is to be received as who you are. Pluralism in Canada is not the exception to the framework. Pluralism is the Canadian framework. Our secularism is open. The state takes no side in the matters of belief, and the institutions of public life are not captured by any faith or identity. In Canada, state neutrality doesn't empty the public square, but ensures that no conception of the good, including humanism or atheism, is privileged by state power, and that every Canadian has the freedom of conscience to live and live fully as they believe. And that means the state, government, above the responsibilities we all have as citizens, and we all have responsibilities as citizens, but above all, government has a special responsibility to ensure that no culture, faith, race, gender, or identity is threatened or suppressed. And it goes further than that. It goes to the responsibility of ensuring that everyone can be their whole selves in Canada. Our fundamental insight as Canadians is that unity is not uniformity, that our differences are strengths to be nurtured, not risks to be managed. And in Canada, faith, language, heritage, tradition aren't concessions to citizenship. They are the expressions of our citizenship. In Canada, the visibility of our differences is the substance of our mutual respect. This is how we hold ourselves together. Now, I don't pretend that this is always easy. Differences generate friction. Accommodation of competing claims is real work sometimes. We'll always have legitimate debates about where those lines properly fall, but those debates are part of how a pluralistic country sustains itself. And today, in Canada, that nature is being tested, as one of our communities is being particularly and brutally targeted. Across our country, anti-Semitism has surged to levels not seen in the post-war period. Last year, over 2/3 of all religion-motivated hate crimes were directed at Jewish Canadians, who make up only 1% of the population. I'm afraid this room knows what I'm about to say all too well. You've lived it. But I want everyone to hear it. Anti-Semites in Canada have fired bullets at Jewish schools. They have thrown firebombs at synagogues. They've attacked community centers. They've targeted Jewish-owned businesses, harassed Jewish patients at hospitals, drove Jewish students from common spaces on our university campuses. They have desecrated our Holocaust memorials. Des parents canadiens doivent désormais se demander s'il est prudent d'envoyer leurs enfants dans une école juive. Les Canadiens pratiquants y réfléchissent à 2 fois avant de porter une kippa dans le métro. Et le même fleuve sévit en Europe et aux États-Unis. Il frappe également le Royaume-Uni, où les attentats terroristes de Heaton Park et de Golders Green ont profondément ébranlé les communautés juives. Et en Australie, où En décembre dernier, 15 personnes ont été assassinées à Bondi Beach lors de la première soirée de Hanukkah. Let me personalize this. Last October, Evan, Solomon, and I, and others, we attended the opening of the Chabad Jewish Center at the University of Ottawa. Remember that? Lovely sunny day. This student center was made possible by the philanthropy of one of Canada's leading entrepreneurs, Harley Finkelstein, who as a student had benefited from the teachings and the friendship, the hospitality of Rabbi Chaim Boyarsky. And the rabbi remains at the heart of Jewish student life at that university. It was a joyous event, otherwise joyous event, but it occurred under heavy police presence and was interrupted by angry shouts of some passers-by. Only a few weeks later, I would next see Rabbi Boyarsky on a bitterly cold Sunday afternoon in December as we lit the first menorah candle at Ottawa City Hall and mourned the victims of Bondi Beach, which included his friend and Chabad colleague, Rabbi Eli Schlanger. The pain, the threats, the fears can appear relentless. The horror and shame are global. Our actions must be local. And they start with clearly admitting that Canada's civic compact is failing Jewish Canadians. And they extend to all Canadians, recognizing that if that covenant fails one of our communities, it fails us all. Since being elected a little over a year ago, our government has been acting, first and foremost on the most fundamental responsibility of government, protecting our citizens. We've introduced 6 new pieces of legislation to bolster public safety and to combat anti-Semitism specifically, as well as other forms of hatred. Foremost amongst these 6 bills, Bill C9, the Combating Hate Act, addresses directly the rise in anti-Semitism, hate-motivated violence, and the targeting of communities. It significantly strengthens the criminal code, it significantly strengthens the criminal code by creating new offenses for intimidation, obstruction at places of worship, schools, community centers, and other institutions used by identifiable communities. Nous avons aussi réaffirmé l'importance de la définition opérationnelle de l'antisémitisme que l'Alliance internationale pour la mémoire de l'Holocauste a formulée et que le Canada a adoptée en 2019 dans le cadre de la stratégie canadienne de lutte contre le racisme. Et cette définition permet la critique légitime de tout gouvernement, tout en nommant la haine à l'encontre des personnes juives personnellement. We're advancing our work to confront hate online and violent extremism, including, not limited to, but including through the Canada Centre for Community Engagement and the Prevention of Violence. That centre leads Canada's works on countering radicalization to violence and supports prevention, research, frontline intervention through the Community Resilience Fund. Last year, the government announced more than $36 million for projects to counter violent extremism, including early prevention in schools and communities, and work to understand and to respond to extremist movements online and offline. A few weeks ago, we committed an additional $75 million through the Canada Community Security Program for synagogues, for Jewish day schools, for community centers, and for institutions of every faith community whose safety is at risk. It pains me that we had to commit $75 million to this. any dollar to this. We're working with provinces, municipalities, and our intelligence and law enforcement agencies to coordinate protection. I would like to take this time to commend Chief Carr, Deputy Commissioner Larkin, Chief Demkew, the Toronto Police Service today, and all your efforts for enforcement. Thank you. And when royal assent comes on Bill C9, we're going to give you additional laws to enforce soon. Ces mesures sont nécessaires, mais cependant, elles sont loin de suffire à elles seules. Un pays où des écoles juives ont besoin des gardes de sécurité, où des synagogues ont besoin de barrières, où les enfants juifs fréquentent des écoles recluses dans un périmètre de protection est un pays qui protège ses citoyens, oui, mais qui n'arrive pas à respecter son pacte civique. It's not enough to protect. The deeper work is the renewal of the Canadian covenant itself. And to that end, I'm pleased to announce today the launch and the membership of Canada's new Ministerial Advisory Council on Rights, Equality and Inclusion. It will be chaired by the Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture, Mark Miller. The Council has a clear mission to combat racism and hate in all their forms, and to guide the Government of Canada as part of our efforts to build a fairer, more just, more inclusive society. I'm honored to announce that Senator Mark Gould, one of Canada's most collaborative, effective, principled voices on the scourge of anti-Semitism, has agreed to join that council. And I am directing that the first responsibility of that council is to address anti-Semitism from 4 different directions. First, the Council will assess the nature, the scale, and the drivers of anti-Semitism in Canada, including across our public institutions, our workplaces, our campuses, our public services, our professional bodies, our online spaces. Because these are the places where the habits of civic life are formed, and where if those habits fracture, the fracture quickly spreads. Secondly, the Council will coordinate a whole-of-government approach to anti-Semitism, because combating anti-Semitism is the responsibility we all share. It will ensure that federal workplaces, federal policies, federal public safety programs, and community initiatives are aligned in protecting Jewish Canadians, confronting hate, and promoting inclusion. Third, the Council will improve research in the collection of data on hate incidents. It will build stronger data sharing systems, so all orders of government, all police services are working from the same facts and with the same alignment. And finally, the Council will measure clearly the impact of our efforts so that we can reinforce investments in education, in prevention, training, and community safety, those particular investments that are actually delivering real results and are helping to build a safer, more inclusive Canada. Now, particularly with respect to the first 2 items, I want to be clear about what these measures are and what they are not. They are not curtailments of freedom of expression. They are not constraints on legitimate criticism of any government on any subject anywhere. But they are. They are the basic standards we owe one another in our shared public institutions to ensure that no Canadian community is driven or even discouraged by those institutions by hatred. Now, institutional measures, even the strongest ones, cannot do the deeper work of true recognition alone. That deeper work falls to each of us as Canadians and to all of us in how we treat each other. As the Nobel Peace Prize laureate and Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel once observed, the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. Time has come. Canadians must stand up for each other. That means all Canadians must speak out when we see anti-Semitism creep into our social media feeds, our classrooms, our workplaces. Because history teaches us that hatred metastasizes when a society grows indifferent to it, when intimidation becomes routine, when conspiracy becomes discourse, when citizens choose to look away. We must learn from that history. And as Canadians, we must learn from our own times of both love and indifference. Au Pier 21 d'Halifax, au cours des siècles derniers, près d'1 million de personnes ont posé le pied au Canada. Elles venaient d'Europe au lendemain de deux guerres, de pays déchirés par les conflits, de régions en proie à la pauvreté et la persécution. Ils sont arrivés avec leur histoire, leurs croyances, leur langue et leurs espoirs. Ils sont arrivés avec un héritage qui est depuis devenu celui du Canada. Et le pacte qu'ils ont conclu, ce pacte qui est depuis lors l'essence même de la citoyenneté canadienne, est clair. That pact for immigration to Canada is clear. We welcome the peoples of the world in all their diversity, in all that splendor. We don't welcome the world's hatreds. When you come to Canada, you bring your faith, your tradition, your language, your story. You leave behind your animosities. Now, we haven't always lived up to all of that pact. 1939, the MS St. Louis, carrying 907 Jewish refugees fleeing Nazi Germany, sailed up the Atlantic coast seeking refuge. Cuba turned them away. The United States turned them away. In Canada, we looked away too. The ship returned to Europe. Hundreds of those passengers were murdered in the Holocaust. The St. Louis is the face of the Canadian promise denied. And Prime Minister Trudeau rightly apologized for it in 2018. The covenant we must renew today is in part the covenant we failed to honor then. And what does this moment require? It requires that we do not transpose foreign conflicts onto each other. It requires all of us as Canadians to stand up and protect our fellow citizens. It requires all of us to raise our voices in disgust and defiance when we see the ugly face of anti-Semitism. It requires that no Canadian child goes to school being seen as a representative of any foreign state. Cela implique qu'aucun Canadien vainquant à ses occupations quotidiennes ne doive assumer la responsabilité des actes commis par un gouvernement où qu'il se trouve. Qu'il soit dans le métro, dans un magasin, à l'hôpital, à l'université, dans une synagogue, une mosquée, un gurdwara ou un temple. Cela exige de tenir les débats politiques au Parlement et dans l'espace public, et non de cibler les entreprises privées, les domiciles et les communautés. The covenant runs in every direction. Anti-Semitism breaks it. Islamophobia breaks it. Burning churches breaks it. Transphobia breaks it. The targeting of any Canadian for their faith, their origin, their identity breaks it. Now, I want to be clear, particularly to the Jewish community. Naming those other assaults is not equivalence. The crisis of anti-Semitism in Canada today is specific, it's severe, and it demands a targeted response. And that is what our government is fully committed to. It's also the case that for all Canadians to remind that the covenant we are renewing is comprehensive. It protects all of us by binding all of us. That's its strength, its source of legitimacy. It's all of our responsibility. So let me close where I began. Canada was summoned into being by peoples who learned imperfectly and over time to hold their differences in common. That hasn't always been easy, and we have at times failed. We failed Indigenous peoples. We failed the Acadians and the French settlers. We failed the passengers of the MS St. Louis. Each failure has taught us something about what it means to be the country we aspire to be. That means protection. It means outlawing and policing hate. It means preventing radicalization and addressing institutional biases. It means restoring Canada's promise by ensuring that each of us has the space and confidence to be their whole selves and to thrive. Canada promises a country in which Jewish Canadians can be visibly, fully, joyfully Jewish in public life, at school, at work, in the street, synagogue, in the academy, in the arts, in every place, because all of Canada is theirs. Canada promises a country in which Indigenous peoples, Muslim Canadians, Black Canadians, Sikh Canadians, Christian Canadians, queer Canadians, every Canadian can be visibly themselves without fear. Canada promises a country where our differences are nurtured, not managed, where differences are honored, not suppressed, our differences are lived out in common, not pushed to the margins. That's the covenant we're renewing today. That's the covenant that we all, as Canadians, must honor with our actions. Thank you very much for honoring me.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Powerful words, true words, as ever. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for the fight. Thank you for the resilience, the hard work, quiet, consistent, powerful. Thank you for your candor. Thank you for your willingness to share hard views about who we are and push us all to do better. Bullet hole in the glass of a synagogue punctures our trust in the covenant, and we must build it back. That's what makes this community extraordinary. That's what makes Canada strong. So it has been a genuine privilege to have you, sir, here with caucus members who fight every day. Thank you for your work. Law enforcement, community leaders in the Jewish community and other communities, and family members, people of families from every faith who do the quiet work. Many of us are carrying heightened anxiety, as the Prime Minister said, about what's going on in the world and anti-Semitism and the safety of our own families. The weight is real. But as the Prime Minister said, it must be named. We must call it out. So to the Prime Minister and our colleagues and everyone, to Leslie, thank you for welcoming us into your great community. Rabbi Splansky, we're glad your father is through this difficult times, Cantor, and all the leaders and Holy Blossom leadership. Thank you. To this beautiful community, the road ahead will not be easy. We are together, honestly and forcefully, to build a better, stronger, safer Canada for everyone. Merci à tous et à toutes. Thank you very much. Prime Minister, thank you.